Finding Common Battlegrounds is an attempt by two brothers, one conservative, the other progressive, to have civil conversations about politics with a little help from their friends.
Okay, welcome to another episode of Finding Common Battlegrounds. Today, this is the podcast that's dedicated to intellectual debate, where we try to find common ground between the two left and right sides of the political spectrum. So we get a topic, and then we find out, and then I have two sides represented here, and we are going to find out how much we agree rather than how much we disagree. And you'll always be surprised at how much we agree upon. So today, Josh and Ryan Cragen, they're brothers, but polar opposites in almost all ways. So they're completely unrelated to each other than by blood. So
true. I'm smart. He's dumb. I'm beautiful. He's ugly. We're polar opposites.
Today, I'm the moderator. I'll be awarding brownie points to how many times they can get the other side to agree with each other. They've prepared 3 points, and today's subject is we're going to be talking about January 6th, and specifically, was the January 6th attack on the Capitol a threat to American democracy? So we'll be going into this and talking about that. First, a word from our sponsor, Lux Bidets, the only civilized way to clean your bottom when you go to the bathroom. We're all big fans of bidets here.
I've got one on each toilet.
I like how you changed your voice there to get all civilized.
Let me get a drink here and raise my pinky, and I'm bideting myself right now.
We need to do an episode where that's what we actually do.
From our bathrooms.
Yep. Yeah. In our bathrooms, we're all on the bidet the whole time.
All right, I'm down. Let's go.
My raw rear end by the end of it. Okay. Well, we're gonna jump into this, and so I'm gonna give a quick background on just kind of like to set the baseline here from where we go from, and then we'll start with the questions. But so I'm just gonna read. I got the wiki up here that I thought was great, and I think it gives some good information. But January 6th. So on January 6th, 2021, so this was just over a year ago, a mob of 2,000 to 2,500 supporters of U.S. President Donald Trump attacked the Capitol building in Washington, D.C. They sought to overturn his defeat in the 2020 presidential election by disrupting the joint session of Congress assembled to count electoral votes that would formalize President-elect Joe Biden's victory. The Capitol complex was locked down, and lawmakers and staff were evacuated as rioters assaulted law enforcement officers, vandalized property, and occupied the building for several hours. 5 people died either shortly before, during, or following the event. 1 was shot by Capitol Police. Another died of a drug overdose, and 3 died of natural causes. Many people were injured, including 138 police officers. 4 officers who responded to the attack died by suicide within 7 months. I think that's all I'm going to put in there. Well, let's see. Yeah, there's a kind of an ongoing debate whether how much Donald Trump was kind of antagonized and encouraged this, which I'm sure we'll be talking about. And, but a couple of things were like there was a guillotine that was gallows were erected west of the Capitol. Yeah, not a guillotine. But
the French Revolution.
And some people were chanting "Hang Mike Pence" as they were going through the building. But anyway, we'll talk about this more as we get into it. But essentially, this attack that happened on the Capitol did this affect our democracy, right? And that's what we're going to talk about. But I'm just going to jump into this so we can get the conversation going. So I'm going to start with Ryan's first question for Josh. So, Josh, can we agree that the crowd attacked the police, and that violently forcing your way into a building constitutes an attack? And if so, can we agree that the Wikipedia title of this event, the 2021 United States Capitol attack? So, because and that's funny you bring that up, because what do you call it? Do you call it the attack, the protest, the riot, the insurrection, right? And there's and both political sides are trying to either downplay or play it up a bit. So,
right. And that's exactly why this is my first point is there has been so much discussion, debate, fighting over, was this an insurrection? Was this a coup? Well, all the different names. And I thought, you know what? Like our last couple of episodes, we've had very little agreement. I'm going back down to like brass tacks. Let's see if we can just agree what to call this thing.
Does the word attack start with the letter A?
Yeah, I didn't quite go that far, but I was like, so I did the same thing you did. I went to Wikipedia and I was like, what did Wikipedia call it? Because they tend to try and be pretty neutral, right? They're like trying not to make this, lopsided. They didn't call it a coup attempt or whatever. And so that's where I went, was like, can we just agree on what to call this? So that is what Wikipedia went with. Their actual title is the 2021 United States Capitol Attack. There were a few thousand people there, as Tom mentioned. They were trying to stop the certification of the vote. To do that, they attacked the Capitol police officers protecting the building and then forced their way into the building, which some proceeded to vandalize. So I think this is all just like truth, right? Like these are facts. If someone forced their way into one of your houses violently, would you agree that that is an attack? And if so, can we agree that the crowd attacked the police and that violently forcing your way into a building constitutes an attack, so we can agree that this was an attack? Can we just agree on what it was? Josh isn't going to agree with me. He's not going to agree with me.
Okay.
Come on.
I'm sorry, but would you classify all of the George Floyd riots as attacks? Because that's the same thing happened. They attacked police officers. They forced their way into buildings. They burned stuff. They vandalized stuff. Were those attacks?
Give me a specific one. Give me a specific one where
any one of
they
them.
attacked
Any one of them.
Well, there were tons. We taught. This is like our very first episode. 96% of those protests were completely like nonviolent. Everything was fine.
Okay, I said riots. There's a difference between a protest and a riot. Sure. Okay, we're trying to be very specific with our terminology here.
If they attack
any
the police,
of the riots,
that was an attack. If they attack police,
what's the difference?
That's an attack.
So what's the difference between a riot and an attack then? Because there is a difference in my mind. In my mind, a riot is a protest where people just get out of control and they start pillaging and looting and do stupid stuff and attack police officers. An attack, in my mind, is premeditated. They were saying, okay, we're going to go to the Capitol and we're gonna call everybody. I don't see.
You don't think this was premeditated?
I don't think so. Okay, even in Trump's speech, he said we're going to go peacefully protest. And I know I keep bringing that up.
I'm not even going to say that Trump premeditated this, but
then who did?
We have evidence that there were 3 or 4 groups that they were planning this for months in advance.
Okay,
and they showed up with the riot gear and everything to actually attack the Capitol.
I was going to get to that. I'll just get to it right now. If it was, and they proved that it was, and they proved that these guys were going to attack and actually harm people, then I'll call it an attack. But I haven't seen where that's been proven yet.
Okay, that's my second point, but we can wait.
Okay, then we'll get to it. So that's my delineation. If this,
so you're just saying it was a riot. You don't think it was an attack.
That's what it looks like to me for most of the people present. Perhaps there were
I totally agree with
groups.
that. I will totally agree with that. For 90 to 95% of the people present, it was more a riot than an attack. For 5%, it was legitimately an attack. It was a premeditated assault on the Capitol.
Okay.
And that's what the data have come out. And that's what the FBI actually have said on this.
Cool.
So,
okay.
Good.
Fair enough. But let's make that clarification.
So do you agree with me?
You don't agree then. It's not
I
an
agree.
attack.
By Ryan's own numbers, I agree 5%.
Oh my gosh. I went to the very bottom, Josh. I was like, can we just agree on what to call it?
But
I don't know.
But no, because most of the people there, it was a riot. They got caught up in the mob mentality and they went and did something very stupid. For if they prove that there were these subversive groups that actually tried to attack and overturn the election results or whatever, you could call that an attack. But I just don't see the proof that that was widespread. There might have been a few guys that did that. I would like to see the proof.
It was more than a few. I mean, it wasn't 3, it was hundreds, but it wasn't the vast majority of the thousands who were there. It was a minority.
Okay. I'm going to move on. This is Josh's question to Ryan. Ryan, Would you agree that 99% of the right thinks the January 6th riot was stupid?
Okay. Can you name any mainstream person on the right? When I say mainstream, well, let me finish the question. Any mainstream person on the right that thinks that there was a good idea or they're glad that it happened? And I'm not talking like Alex Jones. He's not mainstream. You agree with that? He's,
I don't know. I don't know these days.
Oh, shut up. You do know.
The right's gotten pretty weird.
The far right, I'll grant that. The far right.
Okay. So we're talking about like more moderate Republicans.
I'm saying mainstream right. Okay. 95% of the right. The far right is a very small number, same as the far left. And you can,
give me examples of like moderate right versus far right.
All right.
So Alex Jones is far right. Are you saying Mitt Romney? Right. Is Mitt Romney mainstream Republican?
No, Mitt Romney's actually.
So let's just call the whole thing. 99% of the right thinks this is stupid. And what do you mean by stupid, Josh? When you say they think it's stupid?
Well, Tom, did you think it was a good thing that it happened, or do you think the people that did that were stupid? That was stupid for them to attack the Capitol.
Yes, it was stupid. Yes.
Okay.
He just called it an attack. He just called it an attack.
Sure, whatever. Okay. I don't know. Like, I'll be honest with you. When I found out it happened, I laughed. Like, you're kidding me. That happened. I thought it was kind of funny, but like 10% funny, 90%. What are you guys thinking? That's stupid. And I don't know anybody that thought it was a great thing that they did that or that it happened. I don't know anybody that thinks that. And all of the, like, maybe there might be one or two politicians that think it was great, but most of the politicians on the right, like Mitch McConnell, are like, that was ridiculous. All of the media people on the right, Ben Shapiro and Crowder and even Joe Rogan, all these people, none of them thought that it was a good thing that it happened. We all agree that this was stupid. So why are we still talking about it? Hey, everybody on the right is like, yeah, that was terrible, but the left can't let it go. Why are we still talking about it, right? Can you agree at least with
I know
my question?
You don't want to talk about this because it only looks bad. It only looks bad for the right.
It's pointless.
Yes,
these are Trump supporters.
It's embarrassing.
These are Trump supporters who did this. You can't deny that. It's Trump supporters. So to your question, that 99% think that it was stupid. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing that Josh did. I'm going to pick this apart a little bit. The Republican National Party just said that this counts as legitimate political discourse. And they censored the two Republicans who are actually trying to investigate this. That doesn't sound like them saying this is stupid. They called it legitimate political discourse.
Okay.
That's pretty freaking disturbing.
So I have a rebuttal for you.
I've got one more. There are 57 people who were part of the riot or attack who are now running for office for the Republican Party. 57 candidates.
Which is fine, right? It's a matter of who gets elected, I would say.
But they're using this as their bona fides.
Yes.
They're basically saying, I was part of that. You should vote for me because that was not stupid. We were fighting for this. That doesn't sound like 99% are like, that was stupid.
I'm just saying anyone can do that. What'll be telling is how many of them
get elected.
Right?
Exactly.
That'll be very telling.
So,
which is fine.
So let me address that one immediately. So Glenn Youngkin's deputy AG resigned because people found tweets where she was praising the January 6th attack. Why did she resign? Okay, it wasn't because the left would come after her. The left's coming after her regardless. It's because the right is going to, her constituents, Glenn Youngkin's constituents, are going to go, seriously? That's why she resigned. That just happened this last week. So I get your point. If a lot of these people get elected because of that bona fide, I'm going to be shocked and disgusted. Okay,
will you
because
eat crow at that point?
Sure, I actually will. One or two of them
I make
might
a killer crow. I make a killer crow.
You try to. Okay. Your first point. Okay. What the
legitimate political discourse. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, this is going to take a second to talk about this. When Hillary Clinton deleted all of her emails, did anybody and smashed her servers and everything, did any leftist politicians go, you know what, we should form a committee and investigate that? maybe one or two, but I don't think any of them did. When we talked about this earlier, when it was found out that Joe Biden's son was making millions of dollars from Ukraine, did any leftist politicians go, let's form a committee and investigate that? No, they didn't. Did the right? The right tried to, but nothing actually happened. So this is just politics, right?
Weren't there like 7 investigations into Benghazi?
Yes. There was a committee.
There were like 7 investigations. It was absurd how many investigations into Benghazi.
Okay, and who did that?
The right.
The right. Okay. Yep. You're proving my point. Thank you for proving my point.
No, I think you're
shocked here. No. You're shocked here because the politicians are politicking. Okay, that's what's happening here. The right, and we already mentioned this. January 6th is a bad look for the right. I absolutely agree.
This is why you don't want to talk about this, and I had to push to do this podcast.
That's not why I don't want to talk about it. 99% of the people agree that it's stupid. So why would we keep rehashing it? We're rehashing it because it's political, because the left, this is the only thing that the left has to glom onto. And I'm going to get to this with my second point. Okay. Everybody's actually so shocked that the right, the RNC, didn't want to have a committee to investigate this. Well, of course they don't, because it makes the right look bad. Exactly the same as the left didn't want to have a committee to investigate Hillary Clinton or investigate Joe Biden. Okay, this is not shocking. It's just
I'll agree with that.
And what they did, what they said, that this is valid political discourse or whatever. Terrible.
Legitimate political discourse.
What a stupid thing to say. Okay. Which proves my point. They don't want to talk about this because this is a black guy on the Republican Party. It looks really bad. That's why they're censoring those 2 Republicans who are actually honest enough to say, let's get to the bottom of it. They don't want to talk about it. Okay, but you're acting like the left doesn't do this.
I didn't say that was not. That was never my point.
You're acting so shocked.
No.
You're acting so shocked that the politicians are politicking.
What is the right thing to do? Josh, what is the right thing to do here?
No, I'm going to cut this stuff. Where is the 99%?
Do I agree with that?
Yeah.
I will give Josh 1% agreement because there's 1% who don't think it. I'm pulling a him, right? Like, if the Republican National Committee is basically saying it was not a big deal, that's not them saying it was stupid. I get that they're trying to shove this under the rug as far as possible because it looks awful for the Republicans. Looks awful. But to call it legitimate political discourse, and you just admitted that was terrible. It was stupid. I get why they're doing it. They're doing it for political reasons. Okay. I would love for you to be right. So let me say, like, I want you to be right that 99% of Republicans are like, that was horrific. That was awful. This never should have happened. It should never happen again.
Do you know anybody that thinks it was great? Do you personally know anybody that thinks it was great?
No, but we run in very different circles. I mean, that's the whole point of the podcast, right? Like,
my circles are all left.
No, I don't. But I know there are people out there.
I mean, sure. Yeah, we hear about them.
Absolutely, there are people out there, but they're the minority. But the left is treating this like mainstream right is totally in on this, and we all loved it, and we're all going, yes, Trump.
Ryan, but you're saying it's bigger than 1%. You're saying it's like it's large.
Yeah, it's probably because right now I think the Republican Party, and maybe I'm wrong, and I know that Josh doesn't love me. Like, I'm not trying to say Josh is part of the Republican Party. He's conservative, but he doesn't love the Republican Party. So let's just be clear about that. But I do think the Republican Party right now is really stuck with this issue that Trump basically has that party by the balls. I hate to use that metaphor, but he controls it. He is running that party. And anybody who opposes Trump is just terrified that they're not going to get reelected, and they keep dropping out. I'm not going to run for reelection because
that's not completely true. Because
if he sticks his sycophants on there, but Mike Pence isn't running for office.
Totally told him. Okay, but Mike
He's
Pence
not running for office.
To pound sand. Mitch McConnell called him out on this. Okay, there are plenty of people on the right, and when the RNC censored those 2 guys, there was a whole bunch of politicians that said, "Seriously, what are you guys doing?" And they called him out on it. Okay, so you're not completely wrong that Trump has sway, and there is
a ton of power.
Sure, there is a kind of a divide in the Republican Party about what do we do about this? Do we go with
if you
Trump
had
again?
said like 60% of Republicans think it was stupid and 40%
way
or
more
maybe
than that.
30%,
It's way more than that.
I
might
would
be wrong with
guarantee it's like
99%.
10% at least are 100% on board behind this. I mean, think about it.
Possible.
There's still 60 plus percent of Republicans think Trump won the election.
Well, so this was
That's
interesting. I watched
different.
I watched
Totally
a few
different.
videos on this, and there was some polling done, and it was on CNN. I think they're showing some polling. It was actually really interesting because it kept showing. It was like, should these the committee members that were rejected, right? Should they be punished, right? And it was like stuff like that. Should we support people that were in, or should we support people that were in the riot? And there are a few questions like that. And they within the Republican Party, the majority were not supportive of the January 6th attack.
Thank you.
But what was really interesting was it showed that, and then you took those groups and the ones that were supportive of the attack, they are the groups that are most likely to vote in the elections, and they're the most, and there were a few pollings that shows they're the most active. And so, and
interesting.
What it is this is your hardcore base. And this is, I found this, if you look within the caucus systems, because Utah still has a caucus system, that's your hardcore group. This is your die-hard Republicans, and they are generally uber conservative, right? They did not like Mitt Romney, who is a more moderate senator, right? They like Mike Lee, who is more extreme right, and that's the issue that we've always had, and that both the left and right have, is that the more extreme voices are the louder ones, right? And they help drive the primaries. And anyway, I'm just kind of making a point. You're both kind of right in that.
Well, that's the point I'm trying to make. You have the vocal minority, the vocal far right. They're the ones that the left is trying to portray all of us as. And I use the number 99% because it makes a point. Ryan might be right. It might be up to 10%. That wouldn't actually surprise me. But the point I'm trying to make is it's a small minority that think that this was a good idea.
So just because while Tom was talking, he talked about polling numbers. I was like, I've seen some polls on this. I just quickly pulled something up on a question about whether those who were involved in the riot were threatening democracy or protecting democracy. 45% of Republicans, and this was in January of this year, said that the attack was a threat to democracy. 52% of Republicans said those involved in the riot were protecting democracy.
I would agree with that.
That's
because
but do you see what I'm saying? Like, it's not a 99% here. This is more messy.
How is that poll? No. How is that poll phrased? Because I would actually agree with that.
I agree.
They thought they were protecting democracy. Okay,
right.
that is not.
Okay, let me give you one
not representative.
It's phrased in a weird way.
40% of Republicans think violence is justified in politics. So again,
you're trying to extrapolate those onto each other where they don't work.
All I'm saying is it's not 99%, Josh. Okay, so
I already agreed. It may not be. I don't know. I couldn't find an actual number.
I think 10% is probably a low number. It's probably closer to like 30% of Republicans.
Speaking of violence, I'm going to move on to Ryan's second question here.
All right, go ahead.
Josh, a two-parter here. Can we agree that the attackers created gallows? And can we agree that the gallows, whether symbolic or not, were intended to send a message to Mike Pence that the attackers were threatening him in order to get him to overturn the 2020 presidential election?
So again, I'm trying to get to brass tacks.
No, I'll give you that
sweet.
one.
I don't have to give my long spiel on this one.
No.
Or do you want my long spiel? Okay.
No, not really.
So basically my whole point here. Yeah.
You're agreeing you're agreeing, Josh, that they intended violence.
That's not even the full point. The intent behind the attack. Okay, which Josh isn't quite agreeing that it's attack. And I do want to read a little bit of this, right? But the intent behind the attack was to stop the count which is going to get to my last point, which is to overturn a democratic election. But it was to stop the count. That's kind of the key idea here. And just the one thing that I wanted to read, because I mentioned this on my last one. Both of you had mentioned, maybe I'll just read this. Both of you had mentioned at times that you're a little defensive about the idea that Trump instigated the attack. And that's fine. And you've actually cited like FBI investigations into this. I'm not going to try and pin the blame on Trump. I'm really not going to do that today. That's fine. I did look into this a little bit because you kept saying that like the FBI exonerated him, and I couldn't find an FBI report. So there's not a public version of a report from the FBI. There was a Reuters story from August of 2021 that interviewed some FBI agents who were involved in the investigation. And then what they reported on, so it wasn't a report by the FBI. They said basically 90 to 95%, this is where we were getting at with the last one, of the people involved in the attack were not engaged in a conspiracy to attack the Capitol, break in, and take hostages. But 5% were. Groups like the Oath Keepers and the Proud Boys did plan ahead for the attack and came prepared with bulletproof vests, pepper spray, and weapons. Okay, so this was premeditated by the minority. Totally granting it was the minority, but this is what the latest numbers say. Interestingly, that story did note that the groups didn't actually expect to make it inside, as they had no real plans on what to do once they got inside, right? So they're like, we're going to attack, but we think the Capitol Police will actually effectively defend it. They didn't think they were going to get in, which I think is kind of fascinating.
Well, what were they trying to accomplish then?
It's
it
an
was
indictment,
a threat, and this gets to the next part.
It's an indictment on the federal government because the place should have been better protected.
It should have been better protected. I totally
agree. Pathetic that they got in because they didn't have guns. They had pepper spray and stuff. They didn't have guns. They weren't shooting at the cops.
They did have steel pipes and stuff. Like they were hitting police officers. But so I couldn't find a public FBI report on the attack, just that Reuters story. But the Reuters story did say, and I think recent stuff is suggesting this might be more complicated, that Trump and his immediate circle did not organize the attack. Okay. That gets a little bit complicated because he probably knew that it was going to get violent. And that is kind of later stuff that's come out. I think it's fair to say that Trump and his inner circle organized the rally that preceded the attack. That is true.
Yeah.
Let's see.
What is your question, Ryan?
I'm getting to it. I want to try and get to this.
You're just piling on. I'm not going to talk about Trump.
No. I'm not trying. I'm not. Okay. I think it's too far to say that Trump planned the attack. Recent evidence does suggest that his chief of staff, Mark Meadows, knew it was going to happen, and the following members of Congress, and I don't need to read all of them, were actually involved in the planning with the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers that they were going to engage in a violent attack against the Capitol. So Paul Gosar from Arizona, Lauren Boebert, Mo Brooks, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Andy Briggs, Louis Gohmert, a bunch of them were actually involved in the planning, and we have records of them with the people who planned this violent attack, communicating back and forth and saying like this, we want you to do this. And they are on record as saying their logic for this is they want to stop the count. And what they want is while Congress is in session trying to do the Electoral College count, they want Congress to hear windows breaking and people screaming, and they want them to feel threatened. That was the whole point. So they actually worked together with the people planning the attack to make that happen. Okay. So ultimately getting to my point here, my big point is, what was the intent behind the attack?
He can go on and on for 40 minutes and nobody stops him. But if I go on for 2 minutes.
Yeah.
But I'm not repeating
you said it's a two-parter, but this is like,
well, so here's the two-parter. I just wanted to, again, agree on like some facts. Did they create a gallows? Josh already agreed to this. And Tom mentioned at the beginning, and I actually found a photo of it because I was like, if you don't agree, can we just agree on like they created a gallows? There was a noose on there. And
I'm actually going to change my vote. I disagree now because you've just gone on so long.
They chanted, hang Mike Pence. Can we agree that they did that? And the whole point was they were trying to stop the recount. Or not the recount, the count, right? The count of the Electoral College votes. Can we just agree on that? Like that was the intent?
Sure. But it gets back to my whole first problem with this. Everybody on the right, when I say everybody, it's 90% or whatever.
Okay.
We all agree that
we'll
was stupid.
say the majority. I don't know how.
So get over it.
Well, let's
and
move on to
I'll even say
Josh's
this:
question.
if they prove that any of those senators or congressmen were actually trying to plan a violent attack, they should be in jail. Everybody on the right agrees they should be in jail. I'm not defending this, so
Right.
you keep pushing me into this area where I should be defending this.
No,
I agree with you.
Good.
It was stupid.
Good.
So get over it. We all agree.
I
right,
want people to go on the record saying that they agree with this. Like, it was bad.
We
Shouldn't have
already have.
Ryan,
Everybody has.
here's
The
Josh's
Republican
second
National Committee just
question.
called it legitimate political discourse, Josh.
Ryan, do you agree that the left is absolutely obsessed with January 6th? Josh, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, because it's so funny to me why you guys are obsessed with this. Ryan's trying to say we're obsessed with this because it was an attack on democracy. No, you're obsessed with this is because this is the only black eye that you can chalk up to the Republicans in recent history.
It's the biggest.
It's the biggest. Let's go with the
Yeah.
biggest because it's not the only
Oh,
one.
fine. It's the only big one because the left has been the train wreck recently. You're trying to take attention away from all of the George Floyd riots and then the whole defund the police movement that resulted from that big left cities are still dealing with now. We have real authoritarianism happening today. Okay, Justin Trudeau basically just declared all the truckers as terrorists up in Canada. It's fascinating what's going on up there. He's basically just declared martial law, straight up authoritarianism. Let's not talk about that. Let's talk about this riot that happened.
We can talk about that next time. I agree that it's very authoritarian. It's disturbing. That can be our next topic.
Australia's locking people up. Biden wanted to do authoritarian things with the vaccine mandate passport thing. Luckily, the courts blocked him. But then he tried to fine companies that wouldn't mandate vaccines. So there's real authoritarian stuff that's happening right now. Banks are closing accounts of people they disagree with. That just happened this week. This is all stuff that just fell out this week. And then we talked about last time, the left's trying to censor Joe Rogan. This is real authoritarian stuff. But the left just keeps talking about this stupid thing that happened last year that we all agree was stupid. But you just won't let it go because that's the only thing, politically speaking, that gives the right a real big black eye. So let's just keep hammering that instead of talking about anything that's happening now. It's so funny to me. You've been obsessed with this forever.
You know what it sounds like you're saying? It sounds like you're saying, just one random Republican like walked up to the Capitol and pissed on the side of it, and you guys are blowing it way out of proportion.
No, I'm not saying that.
They were wiping excrement on the inside of the Capitol building.
What did I just say about congressmen? If any of those congressmen were involved, what did I say? Freaking lock them up.
Yep, put them in jail.
I'm not saying this is just a tiny little blip. I'm saying the vast majority. Okay, I agree. The vast majority of people agree with you.
The rioters couldn't find a bathroom, Ryan. That's why they were wiping excrement.
It reminds me of the whole George Floyd thing because the cop killed George Floyd and literally everybody was like, that is terrible. Let's do something about it. And then we had all these riots. Who are they rioting to? Everybody agreed. I mean, it's the same thing.
Josh,
we all agree that it was
we talked
bad.
about this before. It's like 96% of those were peaceful protests. You're emphasizing that like they were all riots.
How many billions?
This is our very first podcast.
No. Okay, look. There was. I read the numbers. There was $1.5 million of damage done at the Capitol riot. Okay, how many billions of dollars of damage were done in the mostly peaceful protests? Billions of dollars. Okay, it was. I've read anywhere from $2 to I think $5 billion worth of damage. Entire city blocks were burned down. Okay,
terrible.
So you keep glazing over that, saying 96% were peaceful.
Ryan,
okay?
is the left obsessed with January 6th?
Yes, sure. I'll give you agreement.
Thank you. That's all I wanted.
All right.
That's all I wanted.
Republicans have egg on their face, and we can't help but point it out.
Okay, let's move on then. Josh, can we agree that the purpose of the 2021 U.S. Capitol attack was to undermine the results of the 2020 presidential election, which is the democratic process by which we choose our representatives? And Ryan, I think that's what you're getting, like, because Josh is talking about monetary damage, but this is a bigger deal because it's not just a monetary, 1.5 million.
I know. I don't concede that.
Democracy, right? That we're affecting a heart of our country.
Yeah. So this gets to the primary question today. Was this like a threat to our democracy. And I'm hoping in what I have kind of, written up here to lead to a slightly bigger discussion, because this is also something that Josh has mentioned in previous podcasts that interests me. I'm intrigued. So I don't necessarily have all the answers on this one. So regardless of whether the attack was coordinated and whether or not it was organized by Trump, so let's just throw all that out the window. The intent of the attack was quite clear. It was designed to overturn a democratic election. And I'm using that term very specific, democratic. This raises another issue that I just mentioned, has come up in previous episodes. And correct me if I'm wrong here, Josh, but you've emphasized that you want to protect America as a republic, but are less concerned about democracy. And again, correct me if I'm wrong,
What?
but I just hold on.
I never said that.
You've emphasized the republic part more than the democracy part. And so I looked these up because I was like, why is he parsing these things out? Right. I think this is really weird. And admittedly, it is the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, right? Like those are the two parties.
Yeah.
So a republic is a state in which supreme power is held by the people and their elected representatives, in which has an elected or nominated president rather than a monarch. That's a republic. A democracy is a system of government by the whole population or all the eligible members of a state, typically through elected representatives. The US is both.
It's a
Okay.
Democratic Republic. So I don't know
Yes.
why you're misrepresenting me. What
No,
did I say?
I'm not
that-
trying to misrepresent you. I'm just
Okay,
saying
finish.
it seems like you have said, and maybe I'm not remembering this, but it seems like you said at one point, like, no, we're, like you've emphasized the republic part instead of the democratic part. And maybe you didn't. Maybe I'm misremembering this, right? But in my mind, like we have a federal republic and a representative democracy. We're both. I'm hoping we can discuss after my question whether you do actually distinguish between those, because for me, they like go hand in hand. This is who we are. This is what we stand for. In my mind, the attack on the Capitol was intended to prevent the certification of the Electoral College vote by the legislative branch of our government. That vote was a democratic vote. Okay. It was voting by citizens, which is a core part of what makes the US a democracy. If the attack was intended to overturn a legal and fair election, then the January 6th attack was a threat to our democracy. And if you want, we can quibble over the teeny tiny number of problematic votes, which we talked about before. All I'm getting at is, can we agree that the purpose of that attack was to undermine the results of our presidential election, which was a democratic process, and that is the process by which we choose our representatives?
So you ask a straightforward question, and then in between you mischaracterize me grossly, and then you go back to the question.
I'm not trying to. So if I'm totally misremembering this, then like correct me. But I swear at one point you kind of said like republic, less democracy. I swear you said that.
Are you remembering a conversation you had with Donald Trump and attributing it to me? I mean, what the heck are you talking about? No, you're mischaracterizing me grossly, because the Democratic Republic, yeah, absolutely, they goes hand in hand, because neither situation works very well. Okay, if you just have a pure democracy, that's just two wolves and a lamb voting on what to have for dinner, right? Pure democracy doesn't work. And a pure republic, that doesn't work either. The Democratic Republic is beautiful. It's worked pretty darn well. So I don't know where you're pulling that in, that I thought we should separate the two or place more emphasis on the republic.
All right, so that's wrong, but okay, keep going with it.
And what your actual question? Phrase your actual question for me.
Can we agree that the purpose of the 2020 U.S. Capitol attack was to undermine the results of the 2020 presidential election, which is the democratic process by which we choose our representatives?
Yes. Again,
agreement today.
I've been saying since it happened. Of course, that's what the people there were trying to do. They were trying to overturn the election. Of course. And
so does that make it a threat to our democracy?
No. I mean, I think they if they were successful, maybe. But again, this is a couple hundred people following a guy in a buffalo hat.
It was 2,000 to 2,500.
How many people actually made it inside?
Over 1,000.
Okay, so we have 1,000 people following a guy in a buffalo hat. They broke into a building which just wasn't defended well enough, and they stole Nancy Pelosi's podium. And you want to call that a threat to our democracy? No, I'm sorry.
Okay, the purpose, don't misrepresent this. The purpose was not to steal Nancy Pelosi's podium, right? Like that was not why they did this. It was premeditated by a small minority, but it was premeditated.
And you agreed they didn't have a plan for because they didn't think they'd actually get in.
Right.
But they were trying to overturn an election.
They were trying to overturn an election. They were trying to give fuel to those inside in the legislature who wanted to overturn the election. These people were trying to help them.
Sure.
And that to me strikes me as a threat to our democracy.
But it wasn't successful. I mean, I guess it
wasn't successful. I'm agreeing it wasn't successful.
Question. Right, Ryan. Now that Josh has benevolently agreed to discuss your unhealthy obsession regarding the January 6th, would you now agree to shut the freak up about it?
Only if you don't say freak about it. Say the real word. Come on.
No, I'm not going to drop the F-bomb. Okay.
We don't have to discuss it again unless more data come out in the what I think is a very reasonable investigation of what's going on here. And I get that you see it as political. Of course you think
it's reasonable because you're on the left. Okay.
Well, this isn't the 7th investigation of Benghazi, right? This is the one and only investigation of what happened.
Into Hillary Clinton deleting her emails. Okay, it's so political, and there is.
But don't you think it should be investigated? Come on, don't you think it should be investigated? Let's say that it was completely impartial. It was nine absolute moderates, right? Who were all expert investigators, and they were literally just trying to figure out what the hell happened and how they got through. Would you be okay with that investigation and not 8 Democrats and 2 Republicans or whatever it is?
Kind of. I mean, I would like to know what happened, but how many millions of dollars are we going to spend on this when most of the country, and you'll agree with that, just says this was stupid. Let's not do this again. This was idiotic. Are we really do we need to investigate it? We all agree that the people that committed violence and broke in, they should all be prosecuted. We all agree. I mean, there's very few people that disagree with that.
Including the Republican National Committee.
You already admitted that was politicking. They know it was stupid. That's why they're trying to get away from it, because it makes them look bad. So they're just politicking, and you agreed to that. But you keep circling back around saying, no, they actually think it's a good thing. No, you just agreed. No,
I'm not saying that they think it's a good thing. They're doing everything they can.
Why don't you give us your closing remarks on this then? Just continue your thoughts and then just wrap it up. Summarize it.
I mean, you know exactly what I'm going to say. It was absolutely atrocious that these people committed violence in the name of saving our republic, in the name of saving democracy, because that's what they would tell you they were trying to do, right? They're trying to save our democracy by storming the Capitol building and threatening Mike Pence. Are you freaking stupid? Okay, that is not how you save democracy. I mean, eventually, if it gets bad enough where we have to save the democracy by committing violence, things are going to be way worse than they are now. And storming the Capitol building and stealing a podium that's not how this is going to go down. Okay, we all agree it's stupid. And I keep saying Ryan's right. There's a small minority that think that this was appropriate. Okay, you're stupid if you think this was appropriate. The left, this is all political, right? It's just political. You love to glom onto this because it makes the right look bad. Okay, good for you. Yeah, it makes the right look bad. Can we talk about something more substantive? Because this is so stupid. I already agree. I agree. It makes the right look bad. I'll agree with everything. Yeah, let's talk about something that I actually care about, because I'm over it. It happened. It's dumb.
Well, Ryan, can I just say we find common ground? Did we find common ground?
Yeah, right. I think so.
I think we found common ground.
You didn't sway me.
No, I didn't have to. That's the whole point.
The reason I think you found common ground is I think Josh agrees with everything you said, which is why he doesn't want to talk about it. Because
exactly
right.
But I think this is exactly why we do need to at least get people, because right now there are so many people on the right who just don't want to say anything about it. Okay, Mitch McConnell is a great exception, and this is crazy that I'm applauding Mitch McConnell, but he's literally like, no, this is not legitimate political discourse. what are you thinking censoring these individuals, right? Props to Mitch McConnell for actually saying this was a horrific attack on the Capitol. This should never happen again, and we should be investigating it. Props to Mitch McConnell. We need everybody on the right. It's not everybody, but everybody who agrees that this was horrible to just come out and say this was horrible. But that's not what they're doing, right?
But you're not going to get that. You're not going to get that.
But I got it from you tonight. And that's what the whole point of this podcast is that I got somebody on the right to say it was horrible, it was stupid, it was awful, it never should have happened.
But most people on the right are already saying that. Okay, the big voices like
not the Republican National Committee, not all of the legislators, not like all the people who stand.
Nobody, no. Nobody's listening to them. Who are they listening to? Joe Rogan, Ben Shapiro, and those guys are all saying this.
But you already said, but Joe Rogan is not on the right. I thought he was left of center.
But his personal politics are, but he's now a darling of the right, and most of his viewers are from the right. Okay, everybody. So that's who people are listening to. Ben Shapiro said from the beginning, "This is ridiculous. What are you people doing?" Okay, these are the people that the people on the right are listening to, and they're all nobody. I don't even know the names of the RNC guys that did that. I know one is Mitt Romney's niece. I don't even know who they are. I don't listen to them.
Ryan, you're saying it would just make the American people feel better if there was like some more group, like a bigger, broader group that was condemning the action.
Yeah, instead of trying to just shove it under a rug. And I get Josh's point. Like, I totally get Josh's point. The left want to, like, there's egg on conservatives' face, and they just want to keep pointing it out, and like, this is so awesome. We love that they screwed up. This was terrible. Even though I get that, like, the leaders of this were the fringe. That's totally fair. The leaders of this who actually were premeditated and tried to design this, they are a fringe group. They are a very small percentage of the population. So I get that the left are really kind of blowing this up a little bit. It is a big deal. I mean, people attacked the Capitol. They tried to overthrow an election. That's not a non-issue. That's a big deal.
We all agreed.
Okay.
Most of the people on the right agreed.
Right. What we need is leaders on the right to actually say, this is a bad thing. And right now, literally, it was in the last 2 weeks that the Republican National Committee said, this is legitimate political discourse. Like, that is not leadership. That is not leadership on the right disagreeing with us.
Agreed.
And so I don't know what to make of that, Josh. I really don't. Like, and I get, you said why they're doing this. This is just politics. They're trying to hide this, right? They want to hide it as fast as possible. That's really, okay, it's politics, but it's so disingenuous and it's immoral. Agreed. It's wrong. Everything about
but I gave you how many examples of the left doing the same thing do you want before you'll back off on this partisan thing and quit harping on it? Because the left does the exact same thing, and I hate using that as a justification of defending bad behavior, because it is bad behavior.
You're basically saying two wrongs make a right, and it's not. It's two wrongs make a wrong.
That's what I'm. That's what
that's what you're trying to say right now.
Two wrongs make a wrong.
Yes, so, and I'll agree with that.
I'm trying to get you not to be partisan about it, because the left does the same thing. When something bad happens on the leftist politicians run away from it. And again, I brought this up a couple of weeks ago when I mentioned Jordan Peterson's fantastic argument that the left has no argument for, and I didn't ambush you with it, and I could have, but that's not what we're doing here. When he says the right knows when the right goes too far, and we call it out, the left doesn't. The left doesn't know when the left goes too far. Okay, the right clearly went too far in this case, and most of the right went, "You guys are being stupid. Knock it off. You don't represent me." Okay, all the talking heads on the right called that out for what it was. When the George Floyd riots were going on, the left wasn't saying. I mean, there was a few people like you saying, "Yeah, this is
rioting,
let's not have riots."
Okay. Protests are okay. Riots are not okay.
The leaders on the left, all the news media on the left, all of them are saying this is great. It's mostly peaceful with images of buildings burning down. So that's my problem with the partisan take you have on this. And again, we're what are we, like 95% agreement here? We probably are.
I think so.
But my problem is you're a little too partisan here, because the right, the mainstream right, knows when the far right's gone too far, and we called them out in this case. We really did, and the left is not acknowledging that, and the left doesn't call out when the left goes too far. Very rarely.
Okay.
Ryan, anything else?
Yes. One last thing, and then I really want Tommy's take on this. Let's see. I'm just trying to think of a good number here. So I said it's something like 57 or something like that of the people who participated in the riot are running for office. If more than half of them get elected, okay, I want
There we go.
I want this to be a bet, right? Because Josh
There
is
we
saying
go.
that the majority of Republicans and conservatives, like, they don't like this.
Yeah.
But if more than half of these people who are participating in the riot do get elected, what do I get? And if
No, I
you're
thought
right,
he's gonna eat something, right?
well, I'm just trying to say, like what would I want versus what do you want if
Yeah.
you're right, right? If like less than 50% of them get elected, if all of them get clobbered, like you name it, right? I will take you out for a super nut. I'll buy you 2 bottles of that balsamic vinegar.
I want nothing.
Have you even tried
because
you? Come on, I want you to
the-
go on the line here as like actually making a stand, saying this is
gosh.
the majority of Republicans or conservatives do not want this. I want this to be like let's make a bet. Let's bet on
I'll
this.
buy you dinner. But if I'm right, I want nothing, because that means our
I
democracy,
will buy you dinner.
our democratic republic is in good shape, and that's what I care about.
All right,
Okay.
dinner's on the
I might-
line.
You're
Dinner
right.
is on the line.
I
Tom,
might be
hold us
wrong.
to this. Hold us
I
to
hope
this.
not.
So it's 57 candidates, right? So if the
I
majority,
will double check.
it's the
If
majority.
the majority get
then-
elected,
Yeah, if
Yeah.
the majority get elected, you're buying. Josh, you're buying dinner.
fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll eat that crow if I'm wrong.
Awesome.
But my overall point, you know I'm right, that the majority of the right thinks that it was stupid.
I think it's the majority. I don't know how
and we
much of a
call it out.
majority.
The right
Yeah.
calls it out when the far right goes too far. We're capable of that. I don't see the left doing that so much.
Oh, okay. Tommy's take.
Yeah.
Tommy's take. Can't wait.
Okay. So yeah, I'll go on this. So here's the thing. When I first heard about this, I was like, it was one of those tickers, right? Like breaking news, people have invaded the Capitol, and I'm like, what the heck? And and like after I read like an article too, I'm like, what were they going to accomplish? Right. I'm like, it's like, if they had succeeded, broke in, and, everything's electronic. It's not like they're going to steal some physical ballots and we'd be like, oh, we don't know what the count was. We got to redo the election. Right. And I'm like, the whole time, I'm like, this is the dumbest thing.
So true.
Like what, they weren't going to overthrow anything. So it actually, when Ryan, you were talking about them scaring the body, the Congress, body of Congress, that actually makes sense. That I was like, okay. And they actually might have achieved their goal.
They tried. Yeah.
Well, if their goal was to scare them, then they achieved their goal, right? And to be like, hey, there's consequences, right? A little saber rattling and kind of scaring them of like, we're warning you, kind of a thing, right? But yeah, so I was always like, what on earth? And so yeah, I was very much in Josh's thought process of like, yeah, arrest those guys, put them in jail, and like. And it's totally egg on the face. And I agree that Republicans don't want to talk about it because it looks bad, and Democrats want to talk about it because it looks bad. And and then the interesting thing about the committee thing is that so political committees are like these stupid like dangerous weapons that we use against each other. And the Benghazi committee is a great example, because I'm glad you brought it up, because that's the committee that dug up the emails on Hillary Clinton. It was through that committee that they found those emails, and they went to town through that committee. They went to town and just kept digging stuff up. And so there is a great video, and I just took a second. I was going to try and find it, but I didn't. But where I think it's Senator Trouty.
Okay.
He was interviewing an FBI agent about Hillary Clinton's emails. And when about Trump and the emails and stuff like that. And at one point, the FBI agent's like, what does this have to do with Benghazi? Right. And it was like, yeah. And so like I was reading an article today. So the kind of the latest news with the January 6th thing is there has been some fake electorates. Have you read about this?
Yep.
That were being sent to the states. Now,
I thought Ryan was going to bring that up. I'm shocked he didn't.
Yeah. And part of the committee is now subpoenaing. So like on its face, those actually the January 6th attack and the electorates are actually not related. But if the committee can find, they now have a justification to see if there is a connection, right? Yeah. And so like the committee can just go and go and go, right? And just like, well, we have to know if this is a connection.
They're also investigating like alleged Trump's missing phone calls from the day of the attack.
Yes, exactly. And they're doing subpoenas and like, and so like so committees are total political weapons, right? And so like, so when the Republicans don't want to do a committee and they don't want to put people on their committee, it totally makes sense, right? Because this is just all it's gonna do is turn up stuff that's gonna hurt them. And so like I don't think it's any kind of admission of guilt, but it's that they don't want more egg on their face.
Isn't that an admission of guilt? I mean, it's basically saying this is only going to look bad for us.
No, it's not
like because you're trying to make it look bad for me. I didn't do anything.
Right. It's the whole thing of like never talk to the police without your attorney. You're like, well, why wouldn't you talk to the police? Right. Are you afraid that you're guilty?
Exactly.
Right? You're like, no. And you're like, I just don't want to say anything that could incriminate me later. Right. And it's the same idea.
No good will come of it.
No good will come of it. Yeah.
There's no positive from us having no good for the Republican Party.
Okay.
For them to have this.
Yeah.
Well,
now, with all that said, to go back over to Ryan's point, it's kind of bone chilling that a bunch of people went into the Capitol and they did have gallows and hang Mike Pence, but just the gall and the disrespect for our systems, right, and our democracy, like that is a telling sign of where our society is going, and it's bone chilling, right? Of like, wow, that's not good. Just that people thought that was okay. That that's the stuff we read about in history books, right? And all of a sudden it's happening, and you're like, what the heck is going on? And yeah, it's huge egg on your face, and it makes you not embarrassed to be a Republican. When you're like, man, I'm affiliated with people that are okay with this, right? So like I'm a Republican. I'm going to go to the caucus, meeting and there's going to be people. I guarantee it right now. There's going to be some dude with a sign that's going to be like Trump won, and there's going to be some people that call out stuff, and I'm going to be like, oh my gosh, right? You're like, I'm with stupid, right? And that's
please take a picture of that, Tom. Like totally, wear that shirt and take a picture.
Yeah, they're going to stand over by him.
So I took my family on vacation last week. We were at Knott's Berry Farm in California, and there was this old dude with this big old beard walking around with a Trump hat on, the red one, whatever it said,
MAGA.
And he had a actual placard taped to his chest where he's walking around saying, all the conspiracy theories. Biden is mandating vaccines and they're all going to kill us. He was marching around Knott's Berry Farm, and he thought like this was a good thing.
Yeah,
dude, what are you doing?
Yeah, you're like, go volunteer at your local church, dude. There's better ways to spend your time. So anyway, that's my take, and
that's a good take.
But yeah, that was good. That was good discussion. So I get why Josh didn't want to go.
I disagree that it was a good discussion.
No, it was actually a better discussion than I thought. I'm just over it. That's the whole problem. Most of us are over it. But yeah, it was dumb. But let's move on.
I can be over it now.
Okay. That was my third question.
That was your third
question. We just needed to talk about it, right?
It's
like
Ryan just needs to get this out.
Yeah,
now using
you upset your wife, and you just need to talk about something, right? Okay, you just have to get it out.
Yeah,
and Republicans didn't even want to have that conversation. They're just like, we can't talk about this. Don't run away. I'm like, come on, just like sit down, talk about it, and then we can move on.
That's just the politicians, because it's all about the optics for them. I was okay talking about it. I talked about it right when it happened. Okay, so by your same criteria, now that you're over it, I demand that all of the left is over it. too, because that's what you demanded of me earlier.
I'll get right on that, Josh.
Thank you.
Got
Thank
it
you. I
covered.
appreciate that.
I'll send out all the emails to my phone.
You call your people.
No, I was on CNN and MSNBC's YouTube channels, and they are definitely not over it. they're going.
I'm sure they're not, but I don't follow it.
Strong.
That's why I don't want to talk about it, because I mean we keep getting hit over the head with it. Just like, seriously, we have nothing better to talk about. There's crazy stuff happening right now. We have any of a dozen topics we could talk about just from this last week with Ukraine and the Freedom Convoy. Let's talk about that stuff. Way more fun. But no, we're talking about something that happened a year and a half ago.
I think the Freedom Convoy is a good topic to talk about. But
well, I wanna just to pivot just a teeny bit back to the end of last week's discussion. What I find is so interesting is that we were talking. So you got me going on this. I've been thinking about this all week since last time we talked. Is these two realities that the left and the right are in, and what's so interesting is the naming of this event. Right? Was it a January 6th riot, an attack, an insurrection? Right? And they've all been named all of these things, or protest, and that is so interesting because it's the framing of the reality of what it was, right? It wasn't a big deal. It's just a protest. No, it was an insurrection. Oh, that's a big deal, right? And it's this, it just goes back into this, we're living in two different worlds. There was some article that I was going to send you guys because I found something that was like totally tied into this. Now I totally lost it and I can't remember what it was, but I was like, oh, I need to send this. But like, I keep thinking about that of like, we're just like on these two paths. And it's so interesting that we can't even agree on the name of the event because it implies so much. It feeds so much into our
realities.
Into our reality. So
that's why I tried to start with that. I was like, let's just go with Wikipedia's. I could have started this with like, can we agree that it was a coup attempt? Can we agree that it was an insurrection? Can we agree? Like all of those I know are going to be left, right? Like that's to the left. We're trying to make it as eggy as possible. So I was just like, what did Wikipedia go with? Can we agree with that? And we couldn't.
No. I gave you 5% because 5% was an attack. And so, the rest was just, I mean, you agree with my reasoning there though, right? If they didn't show up with a premeditated attack in mind and they just got caught up in the fur of the 5%.
And that's true for like 95%. Hey, so right at the bottom of that first piece. Yeah, right at the bottom of the first piece, it says over 30 members of anti-government groups, including the Oath Keepers, Proud Boys, and 3 Percenters were charged with conspiracy for allegedly planning their attacks on the Capitol. 10 Oath Keepers were charged with seditious conspiracy. However, the large majority of people charged with crimes relating to the attack had no known affiliation with far-right or extremist groups. So, I mean, that's what I said.
That's a riot.
90 to 95% of the people who showed up basically got engaged in a riot. But 5 to 10% showed up knowing they were going to do this.
Agreed. And you can call that an attack. But if the majority is there and it's a riot, sorry, that's a riot. That's why I can't agree with you.
All right. Josh disagrees with Wikipedia. Oh my Somebody should let him know. I'm not making that as a big deal. I'm just saying he disagrees with Wikipedia.
I'm looking at what I'm actually just going through like CNN's videos. The latest video calls it a riot. But
CNN.
You can't agree with CNN. Come on.
No, CNN's ridiculous.
But they do have. So it looks like, and that's really interesting because over a month ago, they do have insurrection is listed several times. So it's really interesting just to see how they're changing.
Because it was never an insurrection. It was an attempt to overthrow an election. That doesn't count as an insurrection.
I mean, they're charging people with seditious conspiracy. So those who planned this, that is sedition. I mean, that's literally trying to overthrow the government. I think that's fair. They didn't charge 90 to 95% of people with that. And I actually listened to, it was another podcast where they interviewed, or they reenacted, I think it was the Wall Street Journal. They reenacted the FBI's deposition of one of the people who was involved and who eventually was charged. And turns out it was a bit more complicated than he made it out to be. But he literally was like, some FedEx delivery driver or whatever, who wasn't going to go that day, but it was like, I have nothing better to do. It's my day
day
off.
off.
And so he showed up. That's what he says, right? It's like, I just showed up and I was like, I want to see what's going on. And then I ended up, kind of getting involved.
I
And
ended
they're
up
like,
strangling a security guard.
well,
What am I doing here?
he ends up saying, like, I did go into the Capitol, but it was like everybody was going into the Capitol, so I didn't think it was a big deal. And then,
we will now be moving our protest to the Capitol. If you could all
it was really weird, right? And so he kind of like plays it out as though,
feel free to take a memento with you if you'd like.
This is the tour.
It's the hands-on tour. Yeah,
and at the very end,
from Pelosi's office. Go ahead.
At the very end, they say, yes, he said all of this in his actual deposition, but then they actually had a picture of him like pounding on a Capitol police officer. And they're like, duh, so it may be true that he just showed up, but then he did cross the line, right?
He got caught
so
up
he
in the
said all of these
mentality
things
of
like,
it.
I really didn't do anything. Like I walked in, I didn't break stuff. But then there's like a picture of him like pounding on a police officer and they're like, right. But I still think there's probably some truth to this. If he's not a member of one of those groups, he didn't come planning to do this. Yeah, it's probably for him, it's a riot. There was a seditious attempt here. The minority, but it was a seditious attempt by a minority of the people involved.
Why are we rehashing this?
No, we're not. We're agreeing with you. Yeah. Wrap us up, Tom. Wrap us up.
That was great. Okay. Thanks for joining us for that episode. Tune in next week for more.
Josh, we may not always agree when it comes to politics, even though we're trying, but there is one thing we agree on. There is only one way to clean up after going to the bathroom, and that's with a Lux bidet.
I've been a proud owner of a Lux bidet for years. I have literally owned a Lux Neo 320 since 2013. That's the warm water model. Talk about happy, fun, poopy time. When I leave the bathroom, I know I'm clean and ready to talk politics in a civilized manner.
Exactly. Using a toilet without a bidet is about as uncivilized as it gets. Civil conversations demand civil hygiene practices.
And that is why our listeners should get themselves a Lux bidet.
And just to be clear, Lux is not supporting one side or the other in this podcast. They support civil conversations and clean butts.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Finding Common Battlegrounds. The music is by Ben Sound. The views expressed in this podcast are those of the participants and not those of their employers. For more information or more episodes, you can find us at findingcommonbattlegrounds.com.
Okay. Anything else?
That was actually a funner discussion than I thought it'd be, but
I really did try because of the last. I can totally drop it. Because of the last couple of episodes, we didn't get a lot of agreement. I was like, I'm going to go with like, can I get baseline? Like this happened. There was a gallows.
I tried to do that too.
Totally.
And then Tom stole my thunder. He's like, they built a gallows and Shannon killed Mike Pence. And I was like,
and you're like, well, that's kind of definitive.
That was my thing. That's what I was going to go with.
Yeah.
Come on. Can we just agree?
Can we agree on the date? January 6th?
The planning was on January 5th. So
Eastern time,
No, I kind of had the same thought. I thought my first question, I mean, I know you said 99%, but I thought it was kind of a slam dunk, but we agreed on the other two, didn't we?
Yeah. I mean, there was general agreement. I think we generally agree on most of this stuff, but
we did.
Yeah.
I want to talk about Ukraine. Can we talk about Ukraine?
Oh,
for a second. I just want to just shoot the breeze with it.
About Ukraine?
Yeah. There's something really interesting I just thought I wanted to talk about. Ryan brought up when we were in a podcast before, you were saying, I wish President Biden was stronger on Ukraine.
On Russia, yeah.
Yeah, on Russia regarding Ukraine, and I was like, I didn't think much of it, but then I read this article and it was talking about how the right has gone really like dovish with Ukraine, and they were saying how weird that is. And then I was watching some CNN articles today, and they're kind of like hawkish on Ukraine, or sorry, on Russia.
On Russia.
And I was like, this is kind of weird. What was it? Oh, it was a guy, Senator. So it was on the Tara Reid show, and she was, yeah, and it's sort of a, I think it's
watch them.
CNN or I can't remember, but she was saying how Senator Hawley, who's like fairly extreme right, I guess, was saying that China is our biggest enemy, not Russia. And they were saying like, whoa, that's a weird statement. Like that's a crazy thing that he said. And I was like, I kind of agree with that. But I was like, there's this sort of weird thing where the left is really so this is that's why I want to throw out there. I'm like, is it the left is like really concerned with Russia and like really like hot on Russia right now, and I think like the right's been like more like we don't care, and I don't know what's your thought? Did you agree with that, Ryan?
That's tricky. So I mean, I know we're going to talk about Trump a little bit tonight. I'm going to try not to talk much about Trump, and I hate talking about Trump. But during Trump's administration, he was not hawkish with Russia. He cozied up to Russia a lot. And he would occasionally say things like, oh, yeah, I'm going to crack down on him. But he really didn't. And
right. Yes.
What makes that so weird, right, is that like Reagan, let's give Reagan his props. Reagan probably did more than anybody to destroy the Soviet Union, which frankly, I think is a good thing.
It was Cold War.
Right. Yeah, it was Cold War. But I mean, like having read a fair amount about what was going on there was awful. It was really, really bad. And so props to the conservatives who really were like, nope, these guys are the enemy. We have to fight them. But what happened between the 1980s and, the Trump administration to where Republicans are like, yeah, Russia, yeah, that's fine. We're cool with that. Right. And maybe Josh has some insight into this, but it sure seemed like the Trump administration that they had no qualms with Russia. Now, I will fully admit it was during the Obama administration that Russia annexed Crimea without shooting a shot. And we did jack shit during that, right? Like we just basically let that happen, which I think is appalling. So
I thought we did do sanctions against them, and I think those have persisted, right? I don't think we eased them with Trump.
Yeah, I actually was listening to a podcast today.
But that's about it, right?
Right. I was listening to a podcast today. I think it was actually the Daily, so it was New York Times, because I also listened to one by the Wall Street Journal, because those are the two like podcasts I regularly listen to. And they were asking the question, if Russia does invade, can we effectively engage in any sanctions? Because that's what we're currently threatening, right? We're like, we're not going to engage in a ground war. We're going to send troops just in case there's like overflow into NATO countries, but we're not going to send troops. We'll send supplies, but we're going to implement sanctions. And basically what they said is, the only sanctions that would really hurt Russia right now are Nord Stream 1 and 2. They're two gas pipelines that go into Germany. If we killed those, that would clobber Russia's economy because they make so much money off of their gas and oil exports.
Germany doesn't want to do that.
And Germany has not agreed to do that. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So
Germany's
Biden
been
kind of
cozying up to them.
I know. Yeah. Biden kind of was like, and we will shut down Nord Stream 2. And then the German chancellor's like, we're in full agreement on almost everything, right? Like he didn't say it. And so I'm like, oh, no, I don't know, right? So this is the New York Times, which I agree is slightly left of center, basically saying unless we can hit them there, it doesn't matter what sanctions we put in place.
Nope, it doesn't.
We're not going to do anything. And I'm like, wow, that's terrifying, right? So what can we do?
Josh, what do you think?
If you look at like the Obama administration, they had no backbone when it came to Russia, but then there was also the Arab Spring that came from Hillary Clinton and Obama meddling in stuff that they just did not understand, meddling in other countries. So, and again, think back to our podcast.
What do you mean by that? You mean like they shouldn't have been causing Arab Springs, or what? What do you mean?
The whole region was engulfed in war because of what they were doing. Okay, and I'm not really prepared to talk about that tonight,
Yeah.
but
All right.
they caused that, and nobody's really arguing it. And we still have the war in Syria that's a direct offshoot of that. The whole region was engulfed in war because they were meddling. And the right is always accused of meddling in other countries, and the whole world accuses the U.S. of meddling in other countries because we have oil interests and stuff like that. Now I lost my train of thought.
Sorry, Obama did that during his time.
I'll finish his thought for him.
No, our Afghanistan podcast, you were surprised because Ryan was the hawkish one, and I was the one saying, "What about the women and children?" Right?
Yeah.
I don't think it's that weird. I think that's the way things are going. I believe the right has, instead of being the war hawks as we're portrayed, I think we're becoming more libertarian, going, let's just worry about the stuff that we should worry about and not be meddling in everybody else's affairs. And the left is actually the party now that's more interested in meddling in other people's affairs. I think that's the way it's shifting. So I think that's what you're getting at.
Maybe
I'm wrong.
That's
maybe
the
I'm
impression
wrong.
I've gotten from some of the news that I've seen. I'm like, am I right? Is this? I'm just seeing if I'm off base here, and why? It's right? Weird. Why would that be?
Let me just throw something out. Again, I don't claim to know a whole lot on this.
Maybe we should preface this by telling the listeners we weren't prepared to talk about this at all.
I'm just throwing this at you guys.
I wonder if the reason why the left is being a little bit more hawkish on Ukraine right now, right? And all the past, let's just throw that aside, is that we're not trying to aggress against Russia. And this is not actually us trying to attack Russia. It's us trying to defend Ukraine. So I wonder if it's more that, because if we think about the Iraq war and the Afghanistan war, those were, I get that it was like they kind of attacked us, right? Iraq didn't, but Afghanistan was sheltering the people who attacked us on 9/11. So that's why we aggressed. But we did aggress, right? Like we entered that country, and then we did the same in Iraq. Ukraine's a little bit different, right? So this is
they're a victim.
Yeah, they're a victim, and we're kind of saying like, Russia, knock that crap off. Don't you dare invade this country. And I don't know if that gets to the mentalities of the two different parties.
We have more moral justification to be defending Ukraine as
I wonder
opposed to when we're going in as the.
Well, let me throw two things out there. When Russia annexed Crimea, Ukraine turned to us and said, "Hey, are you going to help us?" Because we did promise them a while back, because we didn't want Ukraine to have nuclear weapons. We promised them, if you guys don't have nuclear weapons, we will protect you. The U.S. promised them that, and then we totally reneged on that promise. We did nothing to help them. So that's one thing to consider back in the day. The other thing to probably consider, and this is going to sound kind of conspiracy theorist, what was the country that gave Joe Biden's son a whole bunch of money when Joe was the vice president?
Oh, Ukraine. Yeah, you think that?
So this like just popped into my head.
That's interesting thought.
Yeah, but then why wouldn't we defend them? That it would make more sense that if Ukraine is giving it, which I mean, he sat on a board for a company inside the Ukraine, so it wasn't the Ukrainian government who did it. But then why wouldn't we go after their interests more? Do you see what I'm saying? So like, what would follow from that? So what would follow is if we've got partnerships with Ukraine that are personally benefiting people like Joe Biden's son, right? So let's say that that's driving Joe Biden to do certain things. Then when Russia attacks, we would be more incentivized to defend Ukraine, not less.
Well, that's what he's saying.
That's what I'm saying. I'm actually kind of shocked how much Joe Biden is going to bat for Ukraine, because we don't really have huge interest in getting in a ground war to defend Ukraine, because Ukraine doesn't really want to even be part of NATO. They're in this weird situation where they don't want to be annexed by Russia, but they also don't want to join NATO. So they're trying to leverage the two of us against each other.
I think they've asked to join NATO.
Kind of.
Yeah, they've insinuated like this is what they want, and they've started to move away from Russia.
But that was years ago when they had a more conservative government. Now they have a more liberal government. They haven't been interested in NATO. And they've turned down overtures recently, but now that Russia comes knocking, now they're Now they're trying to leverage us against each other so they can do their own thing. So I am quite shocked by how much Biden is trying to go to bat for Ukraine, even though he said he doesn't want to put boots on the ground.
Right.
He has been really involved in this, and that kind of leads me to believe, well, he's made some backroom deals. He's got a cash cow there. I don't know, but that does make sense to me because they have paid his. I mean, not directly the Ukrainian government, but there were Ukrainian officials involved. This is kind of going down a conspiracy theory rabbit hole.
That seems pretty conspiracy theory. I mean, Hunter Biden's not even there.
But not really.
Right?
But not really.
In fact, isn't Hunter Biden making all of his money in China right now?
I thought it was selling art.
Oh,
Yeah,
maybe.
I don't know.
But like he left Ukraine a long time ago and got off that
he's
board
no
and then was on a board in China.
Yeah.
Because
so
he was
found
actually
out
making
about
money
it.
in China.
Because it was obviously illegal what happened. And I was actually anyway.
All right. Well, I'll wrap this up.
Something to
I just
consider.
thought that is interesting. And yeah, I mean, it doesn't seem like there's any evidence of it based other than the fact that Hunter Biden was on that board, which was really, I don't know, looked really bad to begin with. But yes, that could suggest that maybe there's some other ties that would be motivating the Biden administration to be more hawkish on Russia. That's an interesting idea I'd never thought of. But anyway.
Well, I mean, the one thing that I think we all need to just like keep remembering is that this is a completely artificial crisis that Putin created.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We keep forgetting that we're like, oh, we got to defend Ukraine. And at the end of the day, Putin amassed the troops, right? Like he literally was like, hey, everybody around the world, you stopped talking about me for 5 minutes. I want you to talk about me.
Well,
don't forget that I've got power here.
You know what it reminds me of?
He started the crisis.
It reminds me of North Korea, when North Korea is always like, war, 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 and then they back off. Right?
Yeah, exactly. This is exactly what he's doing.
If you noticed 2 days ago, he was like, oh, we're going to talk and we're going to negotiate. And even though they haven't moved any troops or anything, he's kind of like talking like changed his tone a little bit. And I do think it's a little bit of saber rattling and
I don't think so.
Maybe posturing. I don't.
You think he actually wants to take Ukraine?
Yes. If you go read, he wrote an essay a couple of years ago about the Soviet Union and recreating the Soviet Union. It's quite interesting, and I think it gives a pretty good insight into his character and what he actually thinks. So maybe we could talk about that if you guys want to go read it. I watched a YouTube video about it and read it maybe a month or two ago when this was kicking off. I think he's like a true believer in the grand empire of the Soviet Union.
Good old USSR.
Yes, I really do. It was really shocking. So if you guys want to read that, maybe we could talk about that. Maybe you're right. Maybe he's just an attention whore, but I don't think so. I don't think he's the same person as Kim Jong-un.
No, I think he's trying to get stuff out of this. This is not just about attention. I think he's trying to get stuff. I don't think he created the crisis, right? Like we can't ignore that. 2 months ago there was no crisis in Ukraine.
But
I mean,
sure,
there's
but
an
I wouldn't call it an
ongoing
artificial crisis. He's already shown the world that he has balls of steel. Okay, as much as I don't like the guy, you have to respect.
Hey,
totally respect it.
Anyone who rides a horse, without a shirt on,
absolutely,
my respect.
You have to respect the guy. Okay? When Obama was president, he just took Crimea and then went to the rest of the world. What are you going to do?
Yeah,
what are you going to do?
He did,
and nobody did jack crap. Okay, you have to respect that. So I wouldn't call this an artificial crisis.
But it is because he created it.
Yeah,
there was no need for this whatsoever.
But
he literally created
it. It's not artificial.
Maybe not artificial, but maybe the word.
Yeah, that's the wrong word.
It's
okay. He totally created the crisis.
Yes,
he totally
created. He was testing the world's response, because if it was a weak, tepid response like Obama gave him, he was taking Ukraine.
You're probably right.
I don't think this was artificial at all. I think he was testing the waters, and he'll keep doing it. Next time he sees a weakness, next time the U.S. is involved in looking in the other way, I think he's taking Ukraine.
Do you think he's going to back down completely?
I think he is right now, because everybody's looking at him. Everybody's going, no, we're ready to go to bat here, which is shocking. I did not think Biden would respond like that. But I think he is going to back down now.
Well, if that's true, then that's good. Then the administration responded well.
Absolutely.
Is Josh
for
giving
whatever
Biden props? What? Can you drop like 4 insults at Biden and then say he's doing a good job?
I was this whole thing was more, I thought it was interesting that the two political sides had sort of flip-flopped on their traditional narrative about war. And so I think that's really that was the thing I wanted to discuss. And I thought that's been really interesting. So
I think the right is turning more libertarian. I think that's at the core of the flip-flop there.
Interesting.
But I could be wrong. I could be very wrong. This would be interesting to actually do some research on and have a proper discussion about.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, sorry. And I'll just a little bit more. The way what you just said here is very interesting because there has been the Republican base. I've seen the shift. And I've read a couple articles about this, about that the Republicans are being seen more as representing the working class in the last few years under Trump. Trump has been like this working class, like truckers for Trump, right? And like the whole Ottawa thing, the protest, it's all this working class. And that wasn't present a decade ago, right? It was like Republicans were elitist businessmen who didn't care about the working class. And Bernie Sanders, there was an article, he said that we've failed the working class. He was saying we failed the working class meaning the Democrats are not representing them. And it makes me wonder if maybe like there's this little dance going on with our demographics of the two parties that they're like shifting.
But that's not new.
No, it's not new, but I'm wondering if the Democrats
this shift is new. I'm saying the demographics change over time, and that's always happened with the parties.
No, totally. And in the 80s, they talk about the Christian coalition and the Republicans coming together and being much stronger than it used to, and it used to not be that way. But I read an article about that a while ago. But maybe what I'm getting at is like maybe Democrats are like shifting over to like a hawkish view. I don't know. I'm just like pontificating here, but maybe like there's a little bit of a dance going on.
I would be astonished if the left was really becoming hawks as far as like military intervention.
Right.
I think what they're doing is saying, don't do this, right? So this is a defensive posture.
Right.
We're going to do everything we can, but we're literally saying like, we're not going to put boots on the ground. We're trying to use negotiation and,
which I think is great.
For ambassadors and like, so we're trying to talk this out instead of attack. And frankly, we can't attack Russia.
Mobilization.
We attack Russia, and I'm the first to go here in the U.S. Right? Nuclear bomb lands on Tampa because I've got SANTCOM here, so I'm the first to go. It was nice knowing you guys, but I'm dead.
Salt Lake City, they're like, we don't care.
They don't care about Hill Air Force Base. Josh might get it, but
that's true. Yeah.
But no, Tampa's gone. So it's DC and then Tampa. That's the order.
I don't think the Russians are actually dumb enough to go nuclear, because that's mutual destruction.
Mutually assured destruction.
That's mutually assured destruction. And there was I don't know if you guys had heard about this. There was a scare 30 years ago or something where Russia had thought we had launched a nuke. And they showed incredible restraint not to launch nukes. There was some missile test. I don't even remember what it was. But Russia thought we had launched a nuke, and they were like ready to launch back, but they showed a lot of restraint. I don't think they're that stupid. I think these are fairly intelligent people. They just are authoritarian, and they like power, and they people like Putin. They grew up. He's a KGB spy, right? He grew up in the USSR, and they want that back, and they don't like that the West is interfering, and that we have NATO countries right on their doorstep. You should go read that essay he wrote. Really fascinating.
Can you imagine if the U.S. nuked Russia and Russia didn't fire back, and then like the aftermath of that, like Russia's gone, and U.S. like, well, everyone's like, sorry, who are you?
Well, we are still the only country that has used nuclear weapons in war. We're the only country, and we dropped 2 on Japan.
It sure did.
Yeah, I feel like we
Take that,
kind of got a
Japan.
pass card too on that. And that never gets brought up of like you just
That we're the
blew
only
away
ones.
all these civilians, right? Like
Oh,
just
hundreds of thousands.
nuked these
So
civilians.
immediately
It's
was
like-
tens of thousands, but with the fallout, hundreds of thousands
Yeah.
of Japanese citizens
Hey,
who died.
hey,
It's
the Japanese
horrific.
have been really cool about that. That's what I want to say.
They started it. Hey, they started it.
But-
Maybe.
Sorry.
Yeah, but still, I mean, it's
Yeah.
not like, I mean, yeah.
They didn't have any concentration camps. They were just, whatever. I'm not going to.
Uh,
Okay.
It was pretty bad.
I'll end there.
I've been to Hiroshima. It's disturbing. Crazy disturbing. Have you been to Hiroshima?
Yeah.
I'm sure you went to Hiroshima,
No.
Tom. Or no,
I didn't.
you didn't?
I didn't go. I didn't go that
Oh
far
my
south.
gosh.
But
you didn't
but
go to
I've seen
Nagasaki
like.
either?
Mm-mm.
Holy cow.
Hiroshima
Hiroshima was so disturbing. Like life-changing
Because
disturbing.
there's that building they left up, right?
Yeah,
That's like
There's the clock tower. It's left. The clock is where it was, right? Like it's stopped at that point. And then you can literally see like the shadow of people as they were disintegrated.
Oh, wow.
There's just like a black shadow on pieces of wall. And it drives
That's
home like
crazy.
this is the real power of nuclear weapons. There was a person here, and that's all that's left is just
Yeah.
the black shadow.
Wow.
They were gone,
Wow.
gone. And it's when
That's
you see
sick.
that, it's crazy. Then you go, oh my gosh, like no nuclear weapons. This stuff is nasty, crazy
Well,
nasty.
Hopefully, Putin's not planning anything crazier than just taking Ukraine. But we'll see. I'm taking Ukraine. If you try and stop me, I'm launching the nukes.
Oh
But
my gosh.
Well,
All right.
It's scary
We can-
because the
we can-
Bible talks about the world will be cleansed by fire.
yeah,
Somebody might be dumb enough to actually do that, and then it's mutually assured destruction, and we're all going to be hating it.
crazy. All right. I just want to cover that. Thanks. And cut.